Okay, I just want to start by, because you're beginners, just by talking through some of the materials. So here I have a fluid, cold pressed watercolour paper. Now cold pressed just means textured. Okay, so you'll see if you buy watercolour paper that it'll either say hot or cold press. So cold press just means it has a texture. So when you rub your finger on it, it's rough. Hot pressed is flat. So it has no texture. It's really good for painting flowers and portraits because you don't want a textured surface for those things. I always remember it by thinking I'm ironing it flat. So it's a hot iron, which means it's flat. So watercolour paper, acid free just means that it will last a long time, so it doesn't affect the paint. The content of the paper doesn't affect the paint when you apply it. This is the weight, and that is just the thickness of the paper. So the higher the number, the thicker the paper. And this is an easy block. 15 sheets bound on 2 edges, and all that means is that it's been glued down the side. So each time you make a painting, you then peel the top surface off and then you use the next page. And what that does is it stops you from having to stretch your paper, and you don't have to worry about the paper warping when you apply too much water. Okay, you can buy blocks online in art shops, but they either come in this block fashion or in what they call a loose leaf, which is just like a sketchbook. The size here is 6 by 8 inches, and there's the centimetre size. I think that's about it. That's where you get it from. So I bought these on the internet. I think it was on eBay or something like that. So go and have a look. Buy the best quality paper that you can afford. And then I've got my watercolour palette, which, as you can see, is not very clean. I tend to have a separate plate for mixing new colours because I'm a bit... I like to look after and save my paint. So I could make a painting out of just this section of colour that's left over. So I tend to leave it there and use it later on for other things. And I may even use it today. But that's why my palette is so dirty. So if you want to be like me, then you can continue this way, or you can clean your palette every time. This is a pan palette, so these are called pans, and you can buy them individually or you can buy them in sets like this. You can even squeeze tubes of watercolour into these when they're empty, which is what I do. These are half pans. You can get double the size if you want to make bigger paintings or use bigger brushes, because the only limitation with palettes of this size is the size. So you can only use certain brushes, and these bits slip out from underneath these little clips here. They slip out so that you can wash them. Most palettes are the same. I've also got some masking tape, and this is thin masking tape. Normally it's double this thickness. Again, you can buy this online. It's Tessa masking tape, but it's really good for creating a border around your pictures, and I'll show you how to use that later. I've got a pencil. I've got a retractable pencil here. Normally comes with a rubber on the end, but mine's disappeared. And then I've got several brushes. This is a Chinese brush, and you can either use a Chinese brush or a mop brush, something that's got lots of hair on it, and you can tell that they're watercolour brushes by the fact that they are brown or pale in colour. Acrylic brushes and oil brushes tend to be white or cream. Okay, but that's not always the case. Make sure you buy watercolour brushes for watercolour painting. don't buy acrylic brushes for watercolour painting. This is a rigger brush, it's long and thin. This is a detail brush and it's a number 00. The rigger brush is a number 1 and the Chinese brush doesn't have a size on it. And this is another rigger brush, a number 2. It comes to a better point. And I'll be using some of those in a minute. So first of all, create yourself a nice tidy space, get comfortable. Make sure there's enough light and that you can hear and see this tutorial easily. Oh, I also have a couple of pots of water. So I've got one for cleaning my brushes and one for mixing colour, because you don't want dirty water for mixing colour. So first of all, I'm just going to use my masking tape and I'm going to cut a few pieces to go around the edge of my paper. You don't have to do this, but I kind of like a border around my work. And also, if you come to frame it, it means that you've got something to frame onto. So there we go. And most of my students laugh when I say that, but once they start framing things, they start to realise how valuable their work is and how appreciated their work is, especially when they give it to people, which is what I say, always use your work for some good, whether it's for cards or presents, Christmas presents, birthday presents. We've even made calendars in the past. Right, so now I have a border and I have a nice clean area to work in. And you can see, I don't know whether you can see on this paper, but you can sort of see that there's a slight texture to it. Okay, and that is cold pressed. Remember, if it was completely flat, it would be hot pressed. Okay, so we're going to do a simple landscape. And you can go looking for images if you want. It's up to you what you use, but I'm just going to make one up. So I'm going to take my colours. I'm just going to zoom. In fact, I'll put them here. Normally, I would work with my colours. Actually, no, I will move. So normally you would work with your colours on the side that you write with. So if you work left-handed, you put them on the left-hand side, right-handed on the right-hand side. And the reason that is so that if you that you don't drip your paint as you're going across. If it was over here, I would drip. So left-handed, left-hand side, right-handed, right-hand side. And we're going to mix a blue colour. Now, you might not have these blues that I have, but I'm just going to talk you through some of them. Here is a cobalt blue. Here is a ultramarine blue, and here is an indigo blue. I've also got a phthalo blue back here. But for today, because it's the summer, well, end of summer, September, I'm going to use a cerulean blue. And I'm just going to wet it in the pan. Now, if you're using a tube of paint, because you may have gone out and bought tubes, then you would squeeze a small dot out onto a plate or a palette and add water to it. Now, all this takes practice. How much water do we add? How much paint do we add? All that sort of thing. And you will get used to that as we move on. Okay, but for now, I just want you to enjoy what you're doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply some clean water, and we're just going to apply it over the whole surface of the paper. And this is called wet in wet. So we've wet the paper first, and then we're going to add wet paint on top. And you can see that the whole paper, if you tilt it, you can see that the whole paper is shiny. every single bit is covered. Okay. And then next I'm going to take that watered down paint and I'm going to add it to my surface, and I'm just going to let it blend in to the water. We're not worried about it being even. I'm going to take it all the way down, but what you can do is just work it across the paper like so. And if you want, you can add some darker sections in, but you need to do this quickly. You need to do it before it dries. Okay, because as it dries, it will form hard edges, and you can tilt your paper and that will soften the marks that you've made. Okay, now I think I'm going to leave it at that. I don't really want to fiddle with it anymore because it will dry with hard lines. Okay, so all you have to do now is wait for it to dry. I say wait for it to dry, go and have a cup of tea, whatever, come back. Or you can dry it off with a hairdryer. Now, the only problem with the hairdryer is it can affect the paper and it can affect your masking tape around the outside. So my recommendation is, if you've got time, let it dry out on its own. Put it outside in the fresh air. You know, leave it flat though, because if you tilt it, it will all fall down to the bottom. And either way, if you tilt it that way, it will fall to the top. However, if you have got a hairdryer and you do want to move things on along a bit, then use your hairdryer. I'm going to use mine, but I'm just going to switch this off just for a minute so that you don't have to listen to the hairdryer. Okay, so there it is, dry. I don't know whether you saw, but before and after shots will reveal that the painting before was slightly darker. So watercolour dries darker, lighter as it dries. Okay, so always take that into consideration when painting, especially with certain colours. We'll learn that later on. Okay, so now I want to mix a green, and in here I've got a dirty yellow, and this is lemon yellow, and I used it previously and I accidentally put some blue into it. However, I'm going to use that colour. So this is just lemon yellow with a bit of blue in it, and I would use the cobalt or the cerulean blue that we used earlier on to mix a green. Okay, so any green you want, but I want to put a stripe along the bottom. So again, all of these things take practice. So if you've got some cheap paper and you want to practice, then practice laying down your paint, getting it even, getting lines straight, all those things, including these skies. I mean, we'll do a multitude of skies over the time that you're with me. But, you know, the more you do, the better you'll get. Make little practice strips, you know, so you can practice laying down thicker colour and thinner colour and so on. But I've just put a stripe across the bottom, and I'm just going to dry this off. I'm not going to switch it off this time because it's only a little strip. So just cover your ears for a second. Okay, that's all you need to do. And then we're going to make a darker green. And how do we darken green? Well, we take any blue and we add it to that original green that we had, this one, which was a bit of lemon yellow and cerulean cobalt blue. If you haven't got lemon yellow, just use a cadmium yellow. That is the normal yellow that's in most sets. And I'm just going to lean my hand here, I don't know whether you can see it, just there, and I'm going to use this to balance my paintbrush, and I'm just going to paint some little trees, or the suggestion of trees, just in. And can you see how I'm going up and down like that? I'm just going to put a line going along that top line of that green that I originally put down. And again, practice this. You might make a series of these with different coloured skies, different coloured surfaces down the bottom. Now this is still wet, and I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine blue into my green here. I'm just going to darken it up even further, and I'm just going to drop in some darker patches just here and there, not much, but you need to do this while it's wet, just to give that little line a little bit of texture. Okay, so there we are. Now it's up to you what you do with this. You could put a couple of little birds in the sky, you could paint a sun, but I want you to develop this picture. Or if you're happy with the simplicity, I paint very simple paintings, and I like the calm and the quiet in these paintings. So I will take them so far, and then it's up to you if you want to take them further. So think about potentially what you could put in here. You could put a tree in the foreground. This could be distant landscape. You could put a little tree here, even one on each side. You could put some birds in. You could do a sun, you know, a few clouds even. Okay, but for now I'm going to leave the painting there because I want to keep it simple, and I want you to practice just laying down colour, mixing colours, getting it on the paper and so on. Okay, practice those things. Those things are really important. Getting used to your brushes, getting used to your colour, getting used to your paper. Now I'm just going to remove this edge. Again, I'm going to use my hairdryer because this helps the glue release from the masking tape. If you just take it off as it is, sometimes it pulls the paper with it. So I'm just going to put the hairdryer on really carefully and just use it to lift the masking tape. Okay, and then you can reuse that if you want to. I'm not going to do it all because, you know, your hearing will go. So I'm just going to switch this off and I'll remove the rest. Okay, so there we have it. Beautiful, serene landscape. Like I said, you add detail to it if you want to, and I always sign my work every time I do it. So bottom right, and you can put a whole date on, but I generally just put the year. Okay, I hope you enjoy. Let me know how you get on. Ask me any questions and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Okay. Oh, the other thing you can do as well is send me pictures. So if you want to send me a picture of your finished piece or even your experiments and you want some comments, then I'm happy to give them. Okay, bye for now. And the next tutorial will be, like I said, at the beginning of next month, either on the 1st or the 2nd. Okay, bye for now.